is an important one for all of us. Join us for the JCB session, Translating East, focus on languages of the East and Northeast India for new and fearless voices. As authors Manoranjan Byapari and Chuden Kabimo, publisher bookseller Raman Shresta, and translator Minakshi Thakur discuss the literature produced in these oft-ignored regions with publisher Esha Chatterjee. This JCB session is in association with the Dinesh Chandra Centenary Foundation Trust. Manoranjan Byapari is one of the forerunners. Sorry about that. Manoranjan Byapari is one of the forerunners of Dalit literature in Bengali. A chance encounter with the renowned Bengali writer Mahashweta Devi initiated him into the process of writing, and he published his first essay, Riksha Chalai, in her magazine in 1981. He has written over 12 novels and numerous short stories since then, and won wide recognition and several accolades, including the Shuprabha Mojumdar Prize, awarded by the Paschim Bongo Bangla Academy in 2014, the Shormila Ghosh Smriti Literature Prize in 2015, and the Gateway Litfest Writer of the Year Award in 2019. The English translation of another of his novels, Batashe Baruder Gandho, was shortlisted for several prizes, including the JCB Prize for Literature 2019. For his contributions to the literature of South Asia, he won the Shokti Bhatt Prize in 2022. Chuden Kabimo is a writer based in Kalimpong. His debut novel, written in Nepali and translated into English, is written against the backdrop of the Gorkhaland movement. The English translation of this novel was shortlisted for the JCB Prize 2022, the first originally Nepali book to ever be listed for this award. His book was also shortlisted for Madan Puraskar, a distinguished award for Nepali literature. Kabimo's collection of short stories, 1986, won him the 2018 Yuva Sahitya Academy Puraskar. Raman Shresta. With his raison d'etre to share knowledge, Raman Shresta is the owner and the energy that has made Rachna Books the success that it is today. Started by his father as just another bookshop, he grew Rachna Books into a space for creativity, culture, discussions, and music in the heart of Gangtok. Rachna Books is now a hub of creative and intellectual activities, and it has published many budding talents. It is also the host of the first ever annual literary festival in Sikkim called Converse. He has been instrumental in making Rachna Books a part of modern Sikkim's cultural identity and stimulating interest in books and arts in the youth of the region. Passionate about cultural exchanges and translation, Minakshi Thakur is an author and publisher. Her career in the publishing industry includes her stints with Katha, HarperCollins, and Westland Publications. A bilingual author in her own right, she debuted with her 2002 collection of poems in English and Indian Evening. She was awarded the Sangam House Fellowship and International Writers Residency in India in 2012. Her first novel, Lovers Like You and I, was shortlisted for the Tibor Jones South Asia Prize 2013. And finally, Esha Chatterjee. Esha Chatterjee runs B Books, her independent publishing house that covers a wide range of literary forms, including fiction, non-fiction, translations, essays, graphic novels, and corporate coffee table books. She belongs to the fourth generation of publishing business in Kolkata, and in her spare time can be found reviewing and critiquing books or moderating literary events like today. Over to our panelists.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. It's almost evening. Welcome to the session of Translating East at the 46th International Kolkata Book Fair and the Kolkata Literature Festival. I think we are sitting in Kolkata, which has possibly the largest number of literature festivals. At least 3 very prominent literature festivals are happening here. Everybody sitting here can see the kind of crowd that comes into the book fair. We can proudly say that we are a cultural, at least if not the capital, but quite close to the cultural capital of India. And today we discussed that, are there enough translations happening from the East? And should we speak of this huge region as just East? Or we talk about different states. Today we discuss about what is it that has resisted us from getting the recognition we deserve. Is it the language? Is it the geography? What are the barriers? And we have 4 very different, very talented panelists with us from different regions of India with very, very different backgrounds. I will try and conduct this session in English. I speak in English and Bangla, but the panelists have all the liberty to speak in whichever language they choose. So we begin. I'll start with Raman. Raman, who runs a very, very beautiful independent bookstore in Gangtok called Rachna Books. He's very popular on social media as the bookman, and now he's also an independent publisher. He is the publisher of Song of the Soil, which was shortlisted for this year's JCB Prize for Literature. And Raman, my question is that why did you start publishing? That's the first thing, because you were just a bookseller to begin with. And what was the reason of publishing Song of the Soil? Did you believe in the story, or was it numbers that you knew that it's going to it's going to sell a lot of copies? What was it for you?
Hello everyone. My journey into publishing started because of my whole experience 18 years back then. My 18 years of experience as a bookseller. So what I realized was books were selling, and my focus initially was only on research works, by the way. So I realized that there were a lot of these research work that were happening on our land, on our people, on our cultures. And these books were being published abroad. It was going to university presses, and these books ended up being unaffordable and inaccessible to the people of our own state. The students with so many universities, they didn't have access to these books. And there was a gap in between. The kind of stories and writings that were happening were not coming out from our place. And I found myself best positioned to be able to facilitate that. That got me into publishing. The first 2 books we did was actually books on research-based academic works on Sikkim. Song of the Soil happened because, again, my experience as a bookseller. The Nepali edition had done well. It was an important story that was needing to be told. It had already got a publisher outside, but it's a story from our backyard, and it hadn't come around yet. So what do? We step in. It was my job. I took it upon myself to reach out to his translator, publisher from Nepali language, and say, why don't we do this in India? Why can't we have this story? Because it's a story of our land, and our people should have access to. And that's how I made that foray into publishing world.
And why did you publish it? Is it because
So yeah, numbers always help. I mean, for any, the numbers have to match and it has to exceed if the sales happen. But then again, the thing is, my positioning and my knowledge of all these years of book selling, my contact with the writers there, my understanding of the industry, of my network with people like all of us here on stage, it was important that I have to step in. So the thing is, like I said earlier, first, it's our story. We have to be hearing our stories. A lot of the writing that has been happening in a very unorganized sector. You know, so to be able to guide that with my knowledge of all these years, to be able to come out with one good book, that was the aim, so that our people could read. If people outside our periphery started reading, that was a bonus. I mean, I'm lucky that way. And look where it has brought us with JCB Prize, and it's been a wonderful journey for us. It's very overwhelming. We're still trying to recover from it.
Chuden, before I get into anything that's deeper, but I would just like you to speak something about the experience so far. Because I met you, I remember I saw the book Fatsung back in 2018 or 19 at the Darjeeling Book Fair. I think Bukant was the publisher of Fatsung, and then Anil translated the book, got it published in Nepal, and now it's out in India. It was out in India and it's done so well, and it was shortlisted, and the entire experience of it. Did you expect this story about the Gorkhaland movement getting this kind of attraction, and just the generic experience of it, your experience of being shortlisted and then the way forward?
हेलो नमस्ते। अच्छा, मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहूँगा, मुझे वही कंफर्टेबल ज़्यादा लगता है। तो 2019 में ये फर्स्ट नेपाली में आया था। जिस टाइम पे मैं वो उपन्यास लिख रहा था, उस टाइम मैं इतना यहाँ तक आऊँगा वो तो सोचा ही नहीं था। ये दार्जिलिंग का एक छोटा सा सर्कल है नेपाली राइटर का, वो राइटर को बेस करके लिखा। मतलब जितना पढ़ता है दार्जिलिंग के और इंडिया के जितना नेपाली रीडर्स है, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में है, आसाम पे है, मेघालय पे है, तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जाएगा तो यही जगह जाएगा, ये सोचकर मैंने पहले लिखा था। लेकिन जब लिखने के बाद मेरा पब्लिशर ने कहा, मैं उस टाइम संबोधन पब्लिकेशन था इंडिया पे, सूरज मेरा दोस्त था, वो बोला कि नेपाल पे भी कुछ किताब उधर भेजना होगा, वहाँ भी थोड़ा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का काम उधर भी करेंगे। तो उसके बाद जब नेपाल गए कि हम लोग 1000 किताब डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए गया था, लेकिन जब वो पहले पढ़ लिया तो पढ़ने के बाद वो बोला कि नहीं, ये तो हम लोग छापेंगे और वो भी 10,000 पब्लिश कर लेंगे। तो वहाँ से इसका जर्नी स्टार्ट हुआ। तो जब ये किताब आया उसके बाद रीडर्स का बहुत अच्छा रिएक्शन मिला। इसके बाद ही बांग्ला में समीक चक्रवर्ती, कलकत्ता से ही है वो, उसने ट्रांसलेट कर दिया तो बांग्ला में, शायद इधर भी मिलेगा, आज भी मिल सकता है यहाँ पे बुक स्टॉल पे। तो 2019 में ही इसका बांग्ला अनुवाद हुआ। उसके बाद इंग्लिश में अजीत बराल सर ने, जो पोखरा से नेपाल से, मेरा जो नेपाल का पब्लिशर भी है, उसने ट्रांसलेट किया। उसके बाद ये JCB तक पहुंच गया। अभी हिंदी में आने वाला है, शायद फरवरी लास्ट तक ये हिंदी में भी आएगा।
Minakshi, coming to you, you come from a very corporate background of publishing, unlike Raman and me, because I come from a family-owned business. So when we are talking about translations, how does a corporate publishing house like Westland, which is now also part of Pratilipi, look at translations, look at the East, and why Manoranjan Da?
How does corporate publishing, हिंदी बोलूँ आखिर में हिंदी में बोलता हूँ. How does corporate publishing look at translations? I think I'll have to go back maybe 10-15 years to very briefly tell you how it all began for me, because I was at HarperCollins and we were publishing English original writing. And back in the day, original writing in English in India was looking to the West mostly. It was It was good, strong, but somewhat inspired, which has changed now. There are many different voices and they seem more real, more rooted in their context. But back in the day, it seemed like that. It also seemed like an incomplete enterprise to be in India and to publish only in English. So we got into publishing in Hindi because we had people who understood Hindi. And then what else can we do? How do we bring the real stories that are being written in so many languages? And we are constantly hearing that this writer got the Sahitya Academy, that writer got some other award. But we're hearing these stories, we have no access to it. So that's how we started a translation imprint and published books from over 15, 16 languages. That has continued in my next few jobs. We also started publishing in those original languages. And it's not like a corporate publishing house will publish translations because the numbers are huge. The numbers are not huge. They don't fly off the shelves. They are slow sellers. But I think more publishers are getting into translations now because suddenly the spotlight is on translations. And I'm like, really, it gives me great pleasure to say that all the major awards in the last 2-3 years have gone to translations from the various Indian languages. That's one reason why more publishers are getting into it. It's a good thing because we are growing the market, all of us together. It is a good thing. But it's not like publishers are looking at it like we're going to make tons of money out of these books. No. But I think we have to create interest in the English reader for translations because they're extraordinary stories. They are a perfect combination of what is unique and what is universal. And even though you learn surprising things about each context from the different states, you also relate instantly because there is a cultural connection that runs deep within these languages, within these territories.
We'll come back to
Why Manoranjan Da? Because you can see him. He is so fabulous. We fell in love. We published his first book in English, Batashe Baruder Gondo's English translation. There's gunpowder in the air. And I had a narration. His English translator narrated large extracts from it to me the first time. That's how I came to know about him. And you meet him and you know how extraordinary he is.
মনোরঞ্জন তো অনেক প্রশংসা করলো তোমার এখানে। তো আমি জিজ্ঞেস করলাম যে কেন, ওয়াই মনোরঞ্জন দা তোমাকে কেন পাবলিশ করলো? মনোরঞ্জন দা তুমি একটু তোমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স বলো, কারণ এত বছর ধরে আমার মনে হয় যে তুমি সেকেন্ড টাইম শর্টলিস্টেড। তুমি আগের বছরও ইউ ওয়ার শর্টলিস্টেড জেসিবি প্রাইজের জন্য, এবছরও তুমি ইমানের জন্য শর্টলিস্টেড হয়েছিলে। তো তুমি তোমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স একটু বলো, এই ট্রান্সলেশনস নিয়ে তোমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স বলো। তুমি বহু বছর ধরে প্রকাশনার সঙ্গে যুক্ত, কিন্তু ইংলিশ প্রকাশনার সঙ্গে যুক্ত হয়েছো লাস্ট কয়েক বছরে। তো সেটা নিয়ে তুমি যদি একটু কিছু কথা বলো, যেটা দিয়ে তোমার ইচ্ছা।
দাঁড়িয়ে বলি, সবাইকে নমস্কার। 3টে ভাষা জানি, হিন্দি, বাংলা, ইংরেজি। কোন ভাষায় বলবো? আমি ইংরেজিতে বলতে পারি, কিন্তু সেইটা এখানে মীনাক্ষী ঠাকুরজি আছেন, উনি জানেন যে কখন আমি ইংরেজি বলি। আমার ইংরেজি কিন্তু বোঝা একটু কষ্ট হবে আপনাদের, আমি বলে যাব। হিন্দিটা মোটামুটি বোঝার মতো বলতে পারি, আর বাংলা তো আমার মাতৃভাষা। কথা হচ্ছে এটা যে আমার বই যেটুকু আমি ইংরেজিতে এত কথা হলো কিছু বুঝতে পারিনি। যেটা আমাকে এশা দিদিভাই জিজ্ঞেস করলো যে তোমার বই ইংরেজিতে অনুবাদ হচ্ছে কেন, তাই তো? কেন কেন কেমন লাগছে? প্রথম কথা তো আমার যে বই লেখা হবে আমি কোনোদিন বই লিখব, এটাই তো একটা আশ্চর্য ব্যাপার ছিল। তারপরে সে বই ইংরাজিতে অনুবাদ হচ্ছে, হিন্দিতে অনুবাদ হচ্ছে, মালায়ালামে অনুবাদ হচ্ছে, উড়িয়া ভাষায় অনুবাদ হচ্ছে। এনারা তো 9টা ভাষায় অনুবাদ করবে বলে ভেবে বসে আছেন। তো ভালোই লাগছে। দেশ বিদেশের পাঠক, আমি যা বাংলায় যা লিখি, বাংলাতেই আমার পাঠক সংখ্যা খুব কম। অন্যান্য অনেক বড় লেখকের যেরকমভাবে বই বিক্রি হয়, বুক স্টলের সামনে লম্বা লাইন দেখি, আমার বাংলাতে এরকম লাইন আমি দেখিনি। একবার মাত্র দেখেছিলাম নেপালে, সেটাও জেসিবির বদান্যতায় আমাকে ওখানে নিয়ে গেছিলেন, ওখানেই একমাত্র দেখেছিলাম আমার বই কেনার জন্য লম্বা একটা লাইন, বাংলায় দেখিনি। তো সেই যে মানুষ আমি, যার লেখা বাংলাতেই, আর যত বছর আমি 42 বছর ধরে লিখছি, বাংলার প্রকাশকরা তো আমার বই ছাপতেই চায়নি প্রথম দিকে। বহু কষ্টে নিজে পয়সা জোগাড় করে আমাকে ছাপতে হয়েছে আমার বই, ব্যাগে করে ঘুরে ঘুরে মানুষের কাছে গিয়ে বিক্রি করতে হয়েছে। এখন যখন সেই বইগুলোর মধ্যে কিছু এমন উপাদান আছে যা মানুষের মনোযোগ আকর্ষণ করতে সমর্থ হয়েছে, পুস্তক প্রেমীদের চর্চাতে আসছে বইগুলো, তখন যখন ইংরেজি বা অন্যান্য ভাষায় বইগুলো অনুবাদ হচ্ছে, ভালো তো লাগবারই কথা, কারণ এখন পাঠক সংখ্যা অনেক বেড়ে গেছে। আর একটা কারণে একটু আমি আনন্দিত, সেটা হচ্ছে বাংলাতে নিজের পয়সা দিয়ে বই ছাপতে হতো, এখন আমার নিজের পয়সা লাগে না, বরং ওয়েস্টল্যান্ড প্রকাশনী, মীনাক্ষী ঠাকুর, এনারা আমাকে এত পয়সা দিয়েছে যে আমি এখন একটা পাকা দোতলা বাড়িতে বাস করি।
That was amazing, Minakshi. So he spoke actually about the advanced royalty, which the system that really doesn't exist in the Indian language publishing scenario. Even Bangla publishing being this big, I can speak of it, that nobody really talks of advances when they're acquiring a title. It's mostly about the background of the publisher, the accountability of the publisher comes with, and the desperation of the author. So, Chuden, can I ask you this? कि मैं आपसे ये पूछ रही हूँ कि आपको क्या लगता है कि जब कोई नेपाली में लिख रहा है या ऐसे कोई लैंग्वेज में लिख रहा है जिसका पॉपुलैरिटी ज़्यादा नहीं है रेस्ट ऑफ इंडिया में, वहाँ पे डेस्परेशन ज़्यादा होता है कि कोई भी कुछ भी पब्लिश कर दे, मैं वो ही ले लूँगा, इसीलिए जो बड़े पब्लिशर्स हैं उनको बुक्स मिलते नहीं हैं, उसके पहले ही कोई छोटा पब्लिशर पब्लिश कर चुका है, ये रीज़न है, या ऐसा है कि कोई बड़ा पब्लिशर पब्लिश करना ही नहीं चाहता?
हेलो पब्लिकेशन का प्रॉब्लम तो हमारा, आप वो ट्रांसलेशन के बात कर रहे हैं ना। ट्रांसलेशन जब होगा, पहले नेपाली में हम लिखते हैं, उसके बाद ट्रांसलेशन की बात कर रहे हैं आप। लेकिन हमारा प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि दार्जिलिंग में जितना भी नेपाली राइटर है, उसका प्रॉब्लम तो ये है कि उसका खुद नेपाली में भी ऐसा ट्रांसलेटर नहीं, पब्लिशर नहीं है। जैसा मनोरंजन सर ने कहा अभी कि बहुत पैसा मिला क्या, ऐसा वो बात कर रहा था। लेकिन हमारा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि दार्जिलिंग में पब्लिकेशन हाउस ही नहीं है इतना बड़ा, तो राइटर लोग अपने ही खुद पैसा देकर पब्लिश करता है, सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये है। तो यही एक वजह हो सकता है कि जिसके वजह से वो राइटिंग में भी डेवलपमेंट नहीं हो रहा है अच्छा से, ये भी एक वजह हो सकता है। लेकिन उससे भी ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हमारा अनुवाद का, ट्रांसलेशन का जो काम है वो होता ही नहीं, मतलब ऑलमोस्ट नहीं हो रहा है। तो अभी समीक चक्रवर्ती मैंने पहले बात किया था, वो फ्रंट लॉ में है अभी, तो उसने बांग्ला में फर्स्ट किया था मेरा। उसके बाद उन्होंने दार्जिलिंग का इंद्र बहादुर राय का आज रमिता छ वो नेपाली में टाइटल है, वो उसको भी बांग्ला में लेकर आया है। उसके बाद नेपाल के 2 किताब भी लेकर आया है अभी बांग्ला में। तो अभी शुरू हो रहा है ये। बांग्ला और नेपाली तो एकदम नज़दीक है ना, ये वेस्ट बंगाल में रहते हैं हम लोग, तो दार्जिलिंग में हम लोग लिखता है नेपाली में, लेकिन यहाँ तक भी नहीं आता है। तो पब्लिशर के पास पहुँचने का तब तो बात ही नहीं है, ये प्रॉब्लम है सबसे बड़ा। तो सबसे अच्छा ये हुआ कि ये फात्सुंग बांग्ला के बाद इंग्लिश में आया, इंग्लिश के बाद जेसीबी तक पहुंच गया, तो उसके बाद थोड़ा अभी पब्लिशर लोग पूछ रहा है कि आपको दूसरा किताब कब आएगा, कौन ट्रांसलेशन करेगा, ये पूछ रहा है। तो कुछ साइन आ रहा है कि
कोई बड़ा पब्लिशर आपको अप्रोच किया है या आप खुश हो रचना
हाँ
books के साथ?
ना मतलब कम से कम नेपाली लैंग्वेज को, मेरे लिए नहीं लेकिन जो नेपाली भाषा में लिख रहा है उसको लिए भी एक पॉजिटिव साइन है कि थोड़ा क्यूरियोसिटी हो रहा है उसको कि क्या लिख रहा है उसमें वहाँ पे, तो थोड़ा ध्यान उधर आ रहा है। तो ये हमारे लिए जो मार्जिनलाइज लैंग्वेज में जो लिखता है, नॉट ओनली नेपाली, और दूसरा भी ऐसा भाषा है नॉर्थ ईस्ट में जिसको अनुवाद होकर यहाँ तक नहीं आ रहा है, तो थोड़ा ये कंसंट्रेट हो रहा है ना, तो ये अच्छा साइन हो सकता है।
Raman, I think the most relevant point here is language, and we are also saying that something. I mean, Bengal being Darjeeling being an integral part of Bengal, even Bengalis are not reading translations from Nepali. So, tell me this: that your perception of how language acts as a barrier. My also one of my other questions is also this: that as a bookseller, we both are also booksellers in some capacity, you more, me less, but we've seen that Northeast and Darjeeling and Kalimpong are great English book reading markets, far better than Kolkata. And sorry, in a market like that, why aren't enough translations happening? Because most of the readers are English readers. Most people are so conversant in English, which is not the case here in Bengal. Why isn't enough translations happening, and how language forms a barrier?
Well, in my opinion, everything is still at a nascent stage. Not so much the language, it's a very rich language, but the process of writing, the process of publication, like Chuden was saying, the author is responsible for not only writing, but also going to the printer, sitting there for hours and days just to get the book printed and then distribute himself. But this is only the second half of what the process of book selling, book writing is, or book publishing is. We are also dealing with issues where we have to deal with the trauma of the movement, for example. That takes time. It has been one entire generation. Chuden says himself, he was born after the revolution, the first revolution was over. So that trauma, the processing of it, for the longest time I used to wonder, there's been so much in our land, but why aren't writings happening in Nepali about these things? And this was one thing. Also, there's a thing called individual memory and collective memory of the space and time that has elapsed. How does one look at it? How does one collate these things? How does one start writing a story about it? And now when you look back, after Fatsung came out, there's been like a deluge of writings about the movement, Gorkhaland movement. It has, and it's as if people just need one trigger. It was as if one just needed to pull the plug and the dam would burst. You know, that kind of writing is happening in all sorts, so in a very big way. So, I mean, it's a process that we are having to go through. And when it comes to publishing, translations, one keeps hearing about it. Readership, we are a population of, I think according to the records, 1.5 crore Nepali language speakers. So that way, if you look at it, we are still comparatively small. And most of the books that have been published so far are self-published. They don't have that kind of network. With us getting into publishing, it may be too soon to say myself, but I think we are best positioned to be able to do that kind of job, and I'm very proud of what we are doing. And like I said, it's first we have to start reading our own stories. We have to start writing stories which are readable to us, and then the translations will happen. It's a big process. It's happening everywhere. It'll come to us.
Raman, one more question I wanted to ask. Do you think that if there was no element of the Gorkhaland movement, possibly a movement that defined the area of Darjeeling and the rest of the area, if that was not the element of this book, do you think it would gain this kind of an attention from the English readers? I'll come to Minakshi after this. Do you think a lack of crisis kind of, or maybe a defined crisis in a book, especially in translation, ensures a certain attention?
Well, I think Chuden would be better placed to answer that, but I mean, it's not just a crisis within a book. It was a real crisis.
Yes.
It actually happened. That it was slightly not in the greater media attention back then, maybe because I think Khalistan movement was also happening simultaneously, which got all, so things like that. So a lot of things always happen around the world, and it's how you see it. How little is that movement for you, or how big is it for us? You know, that way of looking at the same thing from two different angles always come into play. So it's not just about a plot in a book which has been translated and it's become popular. It is the lived trauma and experience. So I think, I don't know, as a content, I think he is the right, I think he'll be better placed to answer this.
मैं पूछ रही थी कि अगर गोरखालैंड मूवमेंट नहीं होता तो आपको लगता कि ये बुक इतना पॉपुलर होता, क्योंकि गोरखालैंड मूवमेंट इज द काइंड ऑफ आइडेंटिफाइंग पॉइंट.
हाँ ये तो मैं कैसे बोलूँ, बोले ये बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक बात है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है एक राइटर को वही लिखना चाहिए जो उसको जीवन में और उसका समाज में जो घट रहा है वही तो लिखता है ना राइटर. तो अलग राज्य के जो क्वेश्चन है वो दार्जिलिंग का, तो वो तो बहुत पुराना मांग है, वो हर आदमी के साथ जुड़ा हुआ एक मांग है. तो मुझे ये पॉपुलैरिटी, ये क्राइसिस, ये दिखना नहीं चाहिए कि मुझे एज अ राइटर जो हो रहा है वो लिखना चाहिए. कभी कभी क्या होता है कि आप 10 एप्लीकेशन देता है, वो नहीं, जो बात नहीं समझ सकता है तो वो एक लिटरेचर समझ देता है उसको. तो मुझे लगता है कि वो दार्जिलिंग में जो मूवमेंट हुआ है 86 में हुआ, 2007 में हुआ, 17 में हुआ, तो इतना बड़ा मूवमेंट हुआ, लेकिन उसके ऊपर में कोई भी लिटरेचर में, कोई भी उपन्यास, कोई कथा में नहीं आ रहा था. तो मुझे यही लगा था कि नहीं, इसको तो लिखना चाहिए. कम से कम ये कथा को, जो आम आदमी से जुड़ा हुआ कथा है, उसको मिथ बनने से पहले लिखना होगा ये इतिहास को. तो इसलिए मैंने इसे लिखा. तो ये पॉपुलैरिटी मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा तो दूसरी बात है. तो ये सब मैं कैसे बोल सकूँगा.
Minakshi, coming to you, similar question. When you're not from this area, you're primarily from, I can say, north of India, because we are talking about this as East. When you're acquiring a title from other languages, are you looking at a definitive crisis as part, because we are talking primarily about translations, because we don't see a lot of generic translations happening. We don't see a lot of crime novels getting translated. We don't see romance novels getting translated. Would you acquire a Nepali romance? Would you acquire a Bengali crime? Which doesn't have a unique selling point, if I may say so.
No, in order to sell, then we need that peg to hang a story on.
Do you agree?
I do agree. Also, a lot of romance would be more localized, and the English reader may not be able to relate to it, but there haven't been enough experiments, enough pilot projects to prove that. But when you mention crisis, so great novels or short stories have emerged from great suffering. The great wars, the Holocaust novels, they're still being read. They will be read, I think, for generations to come. Novels on the Chernobyl accident. There are so many of them, and still, I think all of them pretty much work. I'm expecting many novels to come on in future to have climate change as their background. So this is going to happen. It's easier for the editors to kind of position it, pitch it to the bookseller, pitch it to, when you're pitching a book to, say, a book reviewer, to the media, I think it's easier when there is, a crisis adds a layer of complexity to a work, to a novel or a short story. It makes it more complex. The collective memory also included in the book makes it a work that the younger generation would be surprised by, or would be in the way that we related to the novels that came out of Russia. They were all translated. I've read them in Hindi, not even in English. But we were able to relate to something that was a very alien suffering or a very alien complex situation. I think that works for publishers, because I think it's just much more layered than, or much more, the characters are much better etched than, say, characters in a romance. I'm not putting romance down, but we've not tried enough actually. You're right.
Before I go to Manoranjan, I'll have one more question for you. What I'm trying to understand here is that even is there a hierarchy even when it comes to translations? By that, what I mean is that would you acquire a novel which talks about climate change that has been written in Malayalam or in Bangla?
Most definitely.
You would?
Definitely.
Or you would
Malayalam
possibly
and
trust
Bangla-
somebody
Yeah.
who's more Delhi-based, more urban, because they speak the language
No,
of...
not at all. In fact, with some languages, because we are talking about the East, I just want to say that I'm looking for more translators from the East to approach us. Bangla, we have so many good translators, but I don't get more from, say, the other challenges of the form. So short stories sell, novels sell much better than short stories. So English language publishers will prioritize that, even though short stories are wonderful. And in some languages, novels are not enough novels are being written. For Manipuri, if you look for a book, you'll have to publish a short story writer. So those are the choices that you have to make. In Manipuri, I'll have to publish I want more translators to come to us, because somehow we're not able to reach.
So Minakshi Thakur has just said that she, as in Westland, Pratilipi, wants more translators to come to them from different languages, which is, I think, a great positive sign here. And I have a few more questions, but I don't know, once Manoranjan Da starts speaking, I don't know if I'll have enough time to ask them. So, Manoranjan Da, তোমাকে আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছি যে তোমার এই যে জীবন যুদ্ধ, তোমার এই লড়াই যদি না থাকতো, তাহলে কি তোমার মনে হতো যে আজকে এই যারা এতজন এখানে বসে আছেন তোমার কথা শোনার জন্য, তারা শুনতো? বা এই যে তোমার এতগুলো ভাষায়, ইন্ডিয়ান ভাষায় তোমার কাজ এখন পাবলিশ হতে চলেছে এবং আশা করা যায় যে পরবর্তীকালে ইন্টারন্যাশনালিও পাবলিশ হবে, সেটা কি তোমার মনে হয় হতো?
যদি আমার ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডটা না থাকতো, এত বড় মঞ্চ আমাকে কি দেয়া হতো? এত যে লক্ষ লক্ষ কপি আমার বই বিক্রি হয়েছে, আপনারা যে বইগুলো কিনেছেন, পড়েছেন, আপনাদের কাছে জিজ্ঞাসা করছি, আপনারা কি কিনতেন, পড়তেন? পড়তেন না। কারণ আগে একটা ছোট্ট গল্প বলি, তারপরে বাকি কথাটা পরে বলবো। মহাভারতের যুদ্ধকাল, অশ্বমেধ যজ্ঞের কাল, মহাভারতের গল্প। অশ্বমেধ যজ্ঞের কাল, মহাভারতের গল্প। অশ্বমেধ যজ্ঞের ঘোড়া दिग्विजयी पांडव कुल छेड़े दिए थे। किस माई का लाल में दम है, इसको पकड़ के दिखा। तो एक छेले 12, 14, 15, 16, 17 বছর এরকম কিছু একটা বয়স হবে, বব্রুবাহন তার নাম। অশ্বটাকে ধরেছে, সবাই বলছে ছেড়ে দে, এই পাণ্ডবদের অশ্ব, কুরুক্ষেত্র বিজয়ী বীর, নাহলে তোকে খুব ঝাড় দেবে। কিন্তু ওই বাচ্চা ওই অশ্ব ছাড়বে না কিছুতেই, বলল না আমি যুদ্ধ করব। যথারীতি যুদ্ধ শুরু হয়ে গেল। একদিন রণাঙ্গনে আছেন কুরুক্ষেত্র বিজয়ী বীর মহাবীর অর্জুন, তার কাছে পাশুপত অস্ত্র আছে, বজ্র আছে, কত কত কিছু আছে। আর একদিকে বালক বব্রুবাহন। প্রথমে অর্জুন বালক বব্রুবাহনের রথে একটা বাণ মারল, 40 যোজন দূরে রথটা ছিটকে গিয়ে পড়ল। বালক আবার ফিরে এলো, ফিরে আসার পরে বব্রুবাহন একটা তীর মারল অর্জুনের রথে, 3 পা সরে গেল। শ্রীকৃষ্ণ ওখানে উপস্থিত ছিলেন, নেমে তিনি হাততালি দিয়ে বালক বব্রুবাহনকে অভিনন্দিত করলেন। তখন অর্জুনের একটু কষ্ট লাগলো, বললো কি সখা, তুমি কার সখা? আমি ওর রথ 40 যোজন দূরে ফেললাম, তুমি হাততালি দিলে না, আর মাত্র 3 পা আমার রথ সরিয়েছে, ওকে তুমি হাততালি দিলে? তখন শ্রীকৃষ্ণ বলছেন যে তোমার রথে বিশ্বব্রহ্মাণ্ডের সমস্ত ভার নিয়ে আমি বসে আছি, পবনপুত্র হনুমান, আর তুমি এত বড় বিশ্ববিজয়ী বীর, তুমি ওর রথকে 40 কেন 400 যোজন দূরেও ফেলতে পারো, সেটা কোনো বড় কথা না। কিন্তু ওই যে বালক, ওর কি আছে? ও যে তোমার রথকে 3 পা দূরে সরিয়েছে, এটার জন্যে ও প্রশংসার পাত্র, এর জন্যে আমি হাততালি দিয়েছি। ছোটবেলায় স্কুলে যেতে পারিনি, যে বয়সে আপনারা স্কুলে গেলেন আমি গেলাম ছাগল চড়াতে। তারপর একটু বড় হয়ে চায়ের দোকানে গ্লাস ধোয়া, ভয় পাবেন না, আমি শুধু চায়ের দোকানে গ্লাস ধুয়েছি, চা কিন্তু বিক্রি করিনি। চা বিক্রি করেছি বললেই লোকে কিন্তু ভয় পেয়ে যেত। চা বিক্রি করা লোকদের থেকে আজকাল লোকে ভীষণ ভয় পাচ্ছে। তারপরে মুটে মজুরি, রিক্সা চালানো, ডোম সুইপার, নাইট গার্ড, কি করিনি জীবনে, বারবার জেলে যাওয়া, এসব করেছি। তারপরে একদিন ঘটনাচক্রে মহাশ্বেতা দেবীর সঙ্গে আমার যোগাযোগ এবং তারপর লিখতে আসা। তো বিষয়টা হচ্ছে এইটা, এই যে জানারা বসে আছেন, পণ্ডিত মানুষ, প্রচণ্ড পড়াশুনো করেছেন, কারো কারো নামের পিছনে ডক্টরেটও আছে, তারা তো ভালো লিখবেনই, তারা ভালো খান, ভালো বাড়িতে থাকেন, উচ্চ শিক্ষিত, তারা ভালো লিখবেনই। তারা যদি ভালো লেখেন অবাক হওয়ার কিচ্ছু নেই। কিন্তু যে মানুষটা কোনোদিন স্কুলেই গেল না, সেই মানুষটা বই লিখছে এবং ভারতবর্ষের 50টা মতো বড় বড় পুরস্কার, বিদেশ থেকেও পুরস্কার পাচ্ছে, রুশো ফেলোশিপ পেয়েছি আমি। মানুষ কৌতূহলে আমার বই পড়ে, কি আছে ওই বইয়ের মধ্যে। আমরা না হয় আমাদের ঘরের ছেলে, বাঙালি ছেলে, লিখছে, একটু দুটো বই কিনে উৎসাহ দিই, তারা করতে পারেন। কিন্তু বিদেশিরা ইংরেজিতে অনুবাদ হবার পরে যে বইগুলো দেশের এবং বিদেশের যারা ইংরেজি পাঠক তারা পড়লেন এবং এতগুলো পুরস্কার দিলেন, এই যে পুরস্কার প্রাপ্তি আমার, এই পুরস্কার প্রাপ্তি আমার মনোবল আরও বাড়িয়েছে। এবং তারপরে লিখতে লিখতে আজকে এইবার বইমেলাও আমার একটা বই বেরিয়েছে, নিয়ে সর্বসাকল্যে 28টা বই হলো নানা ধরনের। তো এই যে মানুষের ভালোবাসা, আপনাদের ভালোবাসা, পেয়েছি আমার পিছনের ওই জীবনটা ছিল বলেই। না হলে আপনারা আমাদের মতো লোকের বই পড়বেন কেন? যে বাংলাতে রবীন্দ্রনাথ আছেন, তারাশঙ্কর, বিভূতি, মানিক, শরৎ চট্টোপাধ্যায়, সতীনাথ, তারা যা লিখে গেছে আমাদের আর না লিখলেও চলে। কিন্তু আমাদের লেখা আপনারা পড়ছেন কেন? পড়ছেন যা আমাদের করার কথা ছিল না, যে জীবনটা আমরা নিজেরা দেখেছি, যে জীবনটা অন্য কেউ দেখেনি আর আপনাদের দেখাতে পারিনি, সেই জীবনটা আমরা দেখাচ্ছি, সেই কথাগুলো আমরা লিখছি। তাই আপনাদের ভালোবাসা পেয়েছি এই লেখালেখির জন্যে, এবং তার ফলেই আমার লড়াই আমি এত দূরে নিয়ে আসতে পেরেছি। এর জন্য আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ।
Ekdom. Manoranjan was speaking of something that's possibly a little relevant to my next question. We have 10 more minutes. I'll try and wrap it up. We really need to speak about the JCB Prize for Literature and how it has kind of changed the face of translations. It was not that translations were not happening previous to JCB announcing the prize for translations. But the best thing that JCB did was that when they started, I think it was 7 years and now it's 10 years, Priyanjali here, it's 5. When they started it was 5 years. So when they started the prize, one of the main criteria of it was that it has to be written, the original has to be written 5 years before the translation that has happened. So basically focusing on very, very, very contemporary fiction. And when it comes to Indian languages, and I'm speaking of Bangla, I can speak of Bangla most positively, that contemporary even means something that has been written in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, previous to that, previous to JCB, we didn't have inquiries for fictions and short stories that have been recently written. Manoranjan just mentioned there's Rabindranath Tagore, there's so many, Bibhuti, Bonkim. They were the ones who've been extensively translated. I come from a language that's hugely recognized, but when we speak, do we speak of any contemporary writers? We are looking at Shishendu, we are looking at Shonji, we are looking at Sunil Gangopadhyay, late Sunil Gangopadhyay. And even for that matter, Shishendu and Shonjib Jethu, they are so old. Do we know who at present are writing? If not for JCB, would we, English, I'm talking about the English readers, would they know of Manoranjan Byapari? So, speaking of the JCB Prize for Literature, Raman, a little bit about it. Do you think how it has changed, JCB has changed the face of translations? Younger writers like Chuden here are getting the recognition that they deserve. The writing is getting the recognition that they deserve.
Well, I'll speak as a bookseller because that's what I've been noticing. Every year, literary awards happen, and the long list and the short list get announced. But with JCB, in the 5 years, the kind of momentum it has been gaining, when we went for the shortlist announcement event, JCB had not only those 5 books which were shortlisted, but they also had the previous year's shortlisted, long-listed books on display. So what is happening here is like, if Iman gets shortlisted this year, I find myself as a bookseller responsible that I should also look up Gunpowder in the Air, have it in my store, because I come from the front lines of the publishing industry. I am the last bastion from where the book jumps into the hands of the readers. It is my responsibility to bring good books, good writings, and we tend to forget because we are overwhelmed with the kind of new books that come out day after day, day after day. Every time I open my email, there's like announcements for so many new books coming up. With JCB Prize shortlists, things have become easier for me, and I'm also, my focus has always been in the core list or the back list or the mid list. That way I'm, at least personally, I'm making sure that these books are there and it's going into the hands of the readers. And I feel that's my role as a bookseller.
I think JCB also does quite an end-to-end. Minakshi, if I may ask you, that do you think that, like unlike other awards, they kind of do an entire year-round programming and there's a lot of sales support? Do they kind of give that? I'm talking about
There is sales support, and what is impressive is it's not just the winning author or the winning book that the JCB supports. Every author is treated equally. So in many ways it has democratized and publishing in not just the sense that, okay, it was original English and now translations are also included, but also that each writer is a great writer to them, each writer, and they highlight in a very interesting manner, in a very sharp way, what is unique about each one, which I find through their social media, it's very impressive. It goes on for the entire year. The winning authors are present at the next year's next cycles, next cycle's events. I think that's really helped create a buzz about not just translations, but the publishing industry as a whole. Even sales-wise, we get good support from them. Yeah.
Chuden, if you could speak a little bit about also the fact that, you know, JCB has been giving such a great support across the entire year round. You were there at the JLF, you're here at KLF. I think you were visiting some more literature festivals also. How has the foundation supported you?
Hello. मार्जिनस राइटर को वही प्रॉब्लम है, मैं बार बार वही बात कर रहा हूँ कि एक बाउंड्री बन जाता है कि आप थोड़ा सा एक एरिया में लिखता है, वो सीमित पाठक होता है, तो उसके बाहर आप आगे नहीं जा सकते हैं। तो जब मैंने पहले लिखता था JCB के पहले, तो JCB जहाँ शॉर्टलिस्टेड होने से पहले मैं जब लिखता था, मेरा वो राइटिंग करते समय मेरा सोच भी वही लिमिटेड पाठकों के लिए होता था कि उसके लिए मैं ये लिखूँगा, उसको लिए वो ये सोचेगा, ये सोचता था। लेकिन एक बाउंड्री क्रॉस होने के बाद ये मेरा थोड़ा ये लिमिटेशन भी थोड़ा एज अ राइटर, नहीं वो दूसरे लैंग्वेज में कैसे सोचेगा, वो क्या पढ़ेगा, ये थोड़ा मैं पर्सनली ये चेंज हो रहा है। तो दूसरी बात ये है कि पहले जब मैं नई किताब लिख रहा होता था तो उस टाइम कोई लोग पूछता था, तो वही नेपाली रीडर्स लोग पूछता था कि आपकी नई किताब कब आ रहा है। तो तो अभी मलयालम रीडर्स लोग पूछता है कि आपका दूसरे किताब कब ट्रांसलेट होगा तो सबसे बड़ा तो मुझे ये एडवांटेज हो रहा है। और दूसरी बात ये है कि मैं लास्ट वीक में मैं काठमांडू पोस्ट के एक रिपोर्टर के साथ बात कर रही थी तो उसने यही बात पूछा कि इतने सारे इंग्लिश जानने लोग हैं, आपने बोला कि दार्जिलिंग में बहुत लोग इंग्लिश पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन क्यों नेपाली में ट्रांसलेटर नहीं है, क्यों बाहर मेरे ट्रांसलेटर तो बांग्ला के लिए कलकत्ता से आना पड़ा, फिर इंग्लिश के लिए नेपाल से आना पड़ा, क्यों दार्जिलिंग में क्यों नहीं है? ये सबसे बड़ा बात है। ये इंग्लिश जानने भी बहुत लोग हैं, इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल है और नॉलेज भी बहुत है इंग्लिश में, लेकिन उसमें ट्रांसलेट में क्यों उसका ध्यान नहीं जा रहा है? तो सबसे बड़ा बात ये है कि ट्रांसलेशन सिर्फ वो दिमाग होने से व उसके ज्ञान भाषा का ज्ञान होने से ट्रांसलेशन नहीं होगा। तो उसके लिए एक जो साहित्य को आत्मा से समझना चाहिए वो वाला आदमी चाहिए। तो मुझे लगता है अगर ये एक स्टेज तक पहुंचा तो थोड़ी सी जो ट्रांसलेट कर सकता है उसका ध्यान भी थोड़ा ये नेपाली राइटिंग के ऊपर जा रहा है। तो सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज शायद यही हो मेरे लिए।
Very relevant. I think it's a brilliant point that he's brought up, that now the writers are thinking beyond the region of the language, the barriers of language.
There is definitely that excitement, but I mean, again, because I've been in the industry, I keep hearing about how I've been hearing for this for so many years. Translations are important. Hindi mein ho raha hai, this that, from this language to that. But when it actually happens to Nepali, my language, it's as if the barriers have been broken.
Yeah.
With the shortlisting in the prize, it's as if like, wow, there is this possibility. And now when I see these young writers and new writers, even senior writers who visit my bookstore, and we talk about this, there is that sense that yes, you know, there's we can do more, and like you said, we should do better. Let's get ourselves organized, and we are in fact organizing ourselves to start to work more at length and in detail with translations.
When we were discussing how do we conduct this panel, and there was a question as to what language shall everybody speak in, but I think we are almost at the end of the panel, and it has been a pretty, I think it's been very easy. Manoranjan has spoken in Bangla, we have spoken in English, Chuden has spoken in Hindi, and there has been no hesitance or any kind of difficulty in understanding one another. Chuden, who doesn't understand Bangla, understood some bits of Manoranjan Das, and I'm sure Manoranjan also understood what the entire discussion was about. So this is what language does, I think. This is what bringing people together does. And just a line saying that we are so proud to be associated DCCFT, which is a centenary year foundation trust that we have in my grandfather's name, who basically started all of it, publishing, to be associated with the JCB Foundation. And our focus is to promote Bangla literature and get Bangla books to as many people as possible. So thank you, JCB, for associating. We have, I think, 2 minutes. Do we have one question or two questions? Maybe one question if there is any. Oh. I think I've asked all the questions. I think there are no more questions left to be asked. And I think Manoranjan has also answered everything beyond the questions asked. Manoranjan, আজকে তাহলে প্যানেলটা শেষ করছি. So we end the panel here. Thank you everyone. Thank you for patiently listening to this panel, and have a great day. Enjoy the book fair, and the book fair ends tomorrow, so buy lots and lots and lots of books. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that very important discussion, for that very important panel on languages and the East and Northeast.